Welcome to the Quadratic Formula Notes. So today you guys are going to learn something brand new called Quadratic Formula. This is a way for us to find the two roots of a quadratic function without having to factor or find vertex form and solve. So there's actually a song that goes along with this to help you remember, and I'm going to sing it for you. So the first thing we're going to do is write in our words that go into the song. So it goes a little something like this. Opposite B, plus or minus square root, plus or minus square root, b squared minus 4ac, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a, all over 2a. Again, opposite b, plus or minus square root, plus or minus square root, b squared minus 4ac, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a, all over 2a. All right, so now we're actually going to write the quadratic formula using the song. So opposite b, and then plus or minus square root, plus or minus square root, b squared minus 4ac, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a, all over 2a. I've known that song since 8th grade because my 8th grade teacher sang that to me, and so it has stuck around this long. Hopefully it'll stick around for you guys. So this is a formula that's going to help us solve these problems down below. Let's go ahead and get started with the first one. So we have 5x squared plus 13x plus 6 equals 0. You always want to make sure your equation is set equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify the a, the b, and the c. So our a value is the 5. Our b value is the 13. And our c value is the 6. So where did I get those from? Your a value is always the x squared coefficient. Your b value is always the x coefficient. And your c value is always the constant. And then always make sure you include the signs that are with it. Fortunately, these are all positive, so we don't have to worry about negatives this time. All right, and now let's do our formula. So opposite b, plus or minus square root, plus or minus square root, b squared, and I always put my b squared in parentheses in case it's negative. I would suggest you do the same thing, minus 4ac, all over 2a, all over 2a. All right, so what you should know. Okay, so now that we have put in all of our values, now we're going to simplify. So I always simplify inside of the square root first. So let's bring down everything else. So negative 13 plus or minus, and then you got your square root all over 2 times a. So let's take care of the inside of the square root, which is called the discriminant, and we'll talk about discriminant later. So 13 squared is going to give me 169. Minus 4 times 5 is 20, times 6 is 120. All right, then from there we simplify inside again. So negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 169 take away 169 take away 120 is 49. And all over, we can go ahead and multiply 2 times 5 and give us 10. All right, the square root of 49 luckily can be simplified. That doesn't always happen to where it's a nice number that can be taken the square root of. So we are lucky with this problem. Negative 13 plus or minus, that's going to be 7 all over 10. This right here is an acceptable answer. However, what we are going to want to do is to simplify to get our actual roots. So we're going to break this into 2 problems just like we did yesterday for our quiz. So it becomes negative 13 plus 7 divided by 10, and then it becomes negative 13 minus 7 divided by 10. All right, so go ahead and simplify that. So negative 13 plus 7 is negative 6, so negative 6/10. And then negative 13 minus 7 is negative 20, so negative 20/10. And so that gives me an ordered pair of negative 0.6. Not an order pair, excuse me, a set. So let me change that, not to a parenthesis. Let me change it to a bracket. Okay. And then negative 2. So those are my 2 x-intercepts. If we were graphing this quadratic, it would look a little something like this. So it would cross at negative 0.6 and it'll cross at negative 2. It's a positive parabola. Our y-intercept is at 6. So it would look a little something like this. Okay, so our two roots were what we just solved for. All right, so go ahead and try this next one using the quadratic formula. And then I'm going to pause the video and you guys are going to answer it in the EdPuzzle, and then I will unpause it and show you the answer. Okay, now that you've paused the video and solved this yourself, here is the answer. So I plugged in 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 1 all over 2 times 3. Then I went to the next section and I simplified inside the root and got 4 plus 12. Then I simplified inside that root and got 16. So it was 2 plus or minus square root 16 over 6, which then square root 16 becomes 4. So 2 plus 4 divided by 6 and 2 minus 4 divided by 6. So my two answers were 1 and negative and 1/3. Hopefully you were able to get that. If not, just make sure you ask questions in class. All right, so what happens if there's a missing term? No problem, we can still do the quadratic formula. So you just put 0 in for that value. So A for this is 2, B is negative 3, and C is 0. And how do I know that there's no C? Because there's no constant. There's no number that stands alone. So now I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So opposite B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times, hopefully you should notice something, C all over 2 times A. All right. 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared is 9. 4 times 2 times 0 is 0, so you can put minus 0 if you want. It's not necessary. All over 4. So 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 over 4. I know we have a little bit less space in this box here. So then this becomes 3 plus or minus 3 over 4. And then you just simplify that into your two roots. So 3 plus 3 over 4 and 3 minus 3 over 4. So you should get 6/4 or 1.5 and 0. Okay. All right, so now looking at this second one, what term is missing this time? The B value. So our A value is 2, our B value is non-existent, and our C value is negative 3. So using the formula, opposite B, so just 0. So you really don't need that. So plus or minus, if you want to put 0 at the front, you can, just to remind yourself. B squared, so 0 squared, minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. All right, we don't really need the zeros, so we can kind of like cancel those out. Doop. So plus or minus the square root of negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 3 is 24 over 4. Now, square root of 4 can't be simplified. Well, excuse me. It can't change into a nice, like a whole number value, but what we can do is simplify it. So 24 can really be written as, we've practiced this earlier this week, as 4 times 6, which is really 4 times 6 with the square roots. So really square root of 4 is 2 and then 6. So then our answer becomes, so instead of 24, the 24 goes away, and we're going to replace that numerator with 2 square root 6 over 4. Then we're going to simplify that. So then 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2. So divide by 2, divide by 2. So now you get plus or minus square root of 6 over 2, which ugly answer. It's irrational, but no problem. So square root of 6 over 2 and negative square root of 6 over 2. If you want to change those to decimals, you can, but not necessary in this problem. Okay. All right. last two problems. So what if it's not set equal to 0? Hopefully you've noticed in these last four problems that we've done, our equations always have equal 0, equal 0, equal 0. If that's not the case, you just have to solve for 0. So for example, 3k squared plus 3k minus 4 equals 7. Just subtract 7 from both sides, and you get 3k plus 3k minus 11. And then you just get to use quadratic formula and work from there. So it's really just one easy step you have to take beforehand. So now we're going to actually factor this guy right here. So A is 3, B is 3, and C is negative 11. All right, so opposite B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2A. All right, so negative 3 plus or minus, and if I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video. 9 plus 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 11 is 132, I think. All over 6. Yeah, because 12 times 12 is 144. So take away 12, 132. Yeah, should be good. All right, so negative 3 plus or minus square root of 141 all over 6. So now we're going to look at factors of 144, and it's really only 3 and 47, which can't be simplified. So we actually can leave our answer kind of like this. So we can do negative 3 plus the square root of 141 all over 6. And then we can do negative 3 minus square root of 141 all over 6. Now, if you want to, you can change those into decimal form, but I'm perfectly fine you leaving them in this root form. All right, so go ahead and try this last one. I'm going to pause the video while you guys work it out, and then I will show it at the very end. Okay, now that you've had time to solve this, you should have subtracted 8 from both sides and got 5k squared plus 2k minus 12. Your A is 5, your B is 2, your C is negative 2. Then you plug it into the quadratic formula. I noticed inside the square root, the discriminant, it was 244. Well, 244 can be simplified to square root 4 times square root 61. And so that's 2 square root 61. So that's why I replaced the 2 square root 61 and I put it up here. And then I got negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root 61 over 10. But those can all, 2, 2, and 10 can all be divided by 2. So I simplified all those. And then I got negative 1 plus or minus square root of 61 all over 5. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and we will practice more when I get to class tomorrow. Have a great day.